So moving on, we say that you are born as pure potential. When a child comes into this world, they are unique and different from any other child that has ever existed. And we say every child comes into the world with a high need for love and touching, for love and touching. When your children are infants, they cry a lot. And one of the reasons that they cry as an infant is not necessarily because their diapers are wet or because they're hungry, is they're trying to find out, am I safe? Am I in a safe world? Am I in a secure world? Am I okay? And when the parent comes and picks them up and hugs them and touches them and talks to them, then they register at a deep level, I'm okay, I'm safe. The job of parents, especially in the first 3 to 5 years, is to build that solid self-concept like concrete so that the child knows that they are good and desirable and attractive and in a safe world. And that they have that, then they have no deficiency needs. My friend Morris Massey said that most adults spend most of their adult life trying to compensate for the deficiencies they experienced in childhood. If they didn't have enough love and touching, they're always seeking out the approval of other people. If they didn't have enough reassurance, they're constantly insecure as adults. Whenever you see an adult that is having problems, you see a problem that took place in the first 3 to 5 years. And almost invariably, it was a lack of love, a lack of sufficient love. A psychologist, a friend of mine, said if you take all of modern psychology, it can be summarized in this, is that all psychological problems stem back to love withheld. Love withheld at the critical formative times. So we say that every child needs love like roses need rain. They need sunshine. They need roses and rain and sunshine. And you cannot give a child too much love in their formative years. You cannot overdo it. There were some schools of thought said, well, you'll make this child dependent or you'll make the child a sissy. Au contraire, the exact opposite happens. When you lavish your children with love when they're young, they grow up strong and self-confident with high self-esteem, positive self-images. They feel terrific about themselves. Lack of love causes all the deficiencies that we see in adult life. The challenge is, if you look at the inner cities, and I just read a study on this, is that many of the mothers with multiple illegitimate children are also drinking and smoking dope, and the kids have no support, no encouragement. They have no nothing, and so they're set up for failure as adults. Another thing that's even worse is that sometimes one or both parents are so busy that they don't have time with the children. Did anybody see the King's Speech, by the way? Do you remember that really interesting part in there where he's asking him about his childhood, and they said he was the nanny. What did he call the nanny? Was a name for her. Anyway, the nanny would take care of them all day long and then bring them and present them to the parents for a short time each day in the evening and then take them away. And they said, and the nanny would always pinch him so he would cry and the parents wouldn't want to have anything to do with him. And so he grew up with this stutter and this tremendous sense of insecurity. Does anybody remember this? If you haven't seen the King's Speech, by the way, it didn't win all the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, by luck. You watched the movie and you knew that no other movie had a chance. All the other movies were just good box office entertainment. When you watched that movie, you could not believe it. It was so good. And all of his problems with stuttering went back to love withheld in childhood. His father was a bastard. And his father, it even comes out, his father had been extremely aggressive and destructively critical toward him. So his father, the king, was extremely aggressive and critical toward him and berated him continuously. So he just had this terrible stutter. He came to becoming the King of England and almost incapable of speaking. And this King's Speech is, what a great picture. All right. Children are born with 2 attributes. The first attribute is they are fearless. Children come into the world totally unafraid. In fact, children only have 2 fears when they're born, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Some parents think it's funny to drop the child, drop the child quickly, and the child screams and goes like this. They think it's funny. You can set up within the child a trauma in early childhood where the child can be afraid of falling, afraid of distances, afraid of spaces, afraid of stairs, afraid of all kinds of things by simply dropping them because they think it's funny. And of course, loud noises. Loud noises shock the child and scare the child. So you want to create an environment where those 2 don't happen. And this is experienced in the words, I can. I can. The words of fearlessness is I can. I can do anything. They run around, they touch, they taste, they feel, they grab knives, they run out into traffic, they're unafraid of it. They don't know enough to be afraid. Anybody who's ever raised children knows that for the first 10 years of your life, you have to prevent them from killing themselves because they're little suicide bombers. I mean, they just don't understand the danger that exists. We have a swimming pool, and just after we'd had our first child, some friends of ours who also had a child, she was on the phone, talk, left the doors open, the little baby crawled out into the backyard and into the pool and onto the cover on the jacuzzi and crawled into the cover and, of course, fell, and the cover then closed over the child. Talk on the phone, talk on the phone. The child was dead 30 seconds later. And, of course, the family never recovered from it. The husband and wife never recovered. They eventually divorced. It was just a terrible thing because they didn't realize you don't leave children alone. Our children were not alone for 10 years. They were never out of the sight of an adult for the first 10 years because children can kill themselves. There were bars and bolts, and Barbara still has bars and bolts on the door. She doesn't want me to go out. But the thing is that children are unafraid of anything in their formative years because they don't know enough to be afraid. The second attitude that they have, the second attribute they have is they're completely spontaneous. They laugh, they cry, they peep, they poo, they do anything they want. They're completely spontaneous, which is expressed in the attitude, I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. They're completely free spirits when they're children. So the ideal child comes into the world, they are completely fearless and completely spontaneous. And so our natural birthright is to be unafraid and uninhibited. To be unafraid and uninhibited. And we go back to the principle of control. Where do you feel most in control? In the situation where you can be both unafraid and uninhibited. When you're with people that you know and love, who know and love you, so you cannot say the wrong thing, and maybe you've had a little bit of wine or a lot, and you just become completely unafraid and uninhibited, and you're relaxed, and you're spontaneous, and you laugh, and you have a great time. This is your normal birthright. This is what all children are meant to be. And unfortunately, children learn in two ways. The first is they learn by imitation, especially of their parents, of one or both parents. Many children, surprisingly enough, will imitate one parent, and some other children will imitate another parent. We will almost see them as the mirror. Mostly the female children imitate the mother, and the male children imitate the father. But we imitate them. I remember when my children were young, they would do something, and I would say, "You stop that!" And I heard my father, who was British, would say that to me all the time. "You stop that!" with his British accent. And I say, "Oh my God, I'm doing exactly to my children what my father did to me in the same words and for the same provocation." So that's what normally happens, is we naturally spill over and bring our own experience with our parent, and we inflict them on our children. And we're not even aware that we're doing it. That woke me up, by the way. I still remember. I thought, oh my God, I do not want to do to my children what was done to me. And I started to really examine my behaviors to make sure that I did not. So they learn by imitation. Now here's an interesting point. The study recently said that children learn if they live in an orderly world by looking at their mother. If their mother seems to be in control and on top of things and calm and in charge, making decisions, they believe, this is an orderly world. If their mother is harassed and nervous and upset and angry and gets upset about little things that happen and so on, they believe that they live in a disorderly world, and they are insecure, and they have to be like that. So as adults, they will be insecure. I had this woman come up to me, and she said she worries all the time. She worries for ridiculous reasons. I said, "Your mother was a worrier, wasn't she?" She said, "How do you know that?" I said, like mother, like daughter. If your mother was a worrier, she taught you to worry at her knee. Now, little girl, this is how you worry when you grow up, okay? You take completely absurd things, you catastrophize, you blow them completely out of proportion, and you think about them all the time, okay? And, okay, mommy. And so they grow up, and as adults, they worry all the time. You sound like a genius. How did you know that about my father? How did you know that about your mother? This guy comes up to me, and he said, I've never had any confidence. I said, "Your father was really a bastard, wasn't he? He was always criticized." "How did you know that?" "Well, because if you're a male and you have no confidence, almost invariably it was your father criticized you all the time. And as a result, you never had any confidence to try anything." "How did you know that?" "Well, because the stuff we're talking about is so important, and yet it's so simple. So we say they learn by moving from discomfort toward comfort. Sigmund Freud's great breakthrough was the pleasure-pain principle, is that people move from pain to pleasure. So they move from discomfort toward comfort. And that is the child's primary motivation. When children are young, they're totally emotional, and they always are moving away from lack of love toward love. They work away from fear and criticism toward love and acceptance. And they're automatic. They're just simply moving all the time from discomfort toward comfort. We as adults, by the way, move from discomfort toward comfort all the time. It is our primary motivation. We are seeking pleasure and moving away from pain. One of the pleasures, the 7 ingredients of success, one of the pleasures is peace of mind, another is financial independence, another is loving relationships. And we always move to compensate for the deficiency that we feel that we are experiencing now. So if we feel that we don't have enough money, that becomes our preoccupation to get enough money. If we don't feel that we have enough love and security in our relationships, that becomes our preoccupation. So very early in life, children begin to develop negative habit patterns which have their roots in destructive criticism. Now, where do these negative habit patterns come from? The first one they come from is destructive criticism. It's used by parents to direct and control their children. Now, destructive criticism happens when the child is told, don't, get away from there, stop that. How many times have I told you? Whack, slap, punishment. And the child has no understanding that playing with knives is dangerous. They don't understand what's going on. They only know that if I try something new, Mommy and Daddy get really mad at me, and they shout at me, and they hit me. So if I try something new, I'm in danger. So I've got to avoid doing anything new. I've got to avoid touching, tasting, feeling things. I can't. And they develop this feeling of I can't. And this feeling of I can't eventually moves, as we say, becomes the inhibitive negative habit pattern. We feel inhibited from trying to do things. We feel inhibited. We feel incompetent, incapable. I'm too small. I can't. And in adult life, this manifests itself. This pattern triggers the response of I can't, which creates the fear of failure. And the fear of failure is the greatest single obstacle to success in adult life. It's not that we cannot do extraordinary things with our lives. It's just that we have such fears, and the fears are irrational. They're not based on anything. They're based on childhood experiences. General MacArthur once said, there is no security in life, there is only opportunity. But unfortunately, the bottom 80% of the population are preoccupied with security, and even into the top 20%, and they think about security all the time, and they're traumatized about taking risks. Here's an interesting discovery about the fear of failure. I can't. And that is that the fear of failure is expressed in the body. And if you take the human body and you turn it sideways, so here's the body, here's the head, okay? And then you divide the human body in half, this way, that is laterally, and you get the front of the body and the back of the body. Well, the fear of failure is manifested on the front of the body. It's manifested first in the solar plexus. Your solar plexus chokes up when you have a fear-induced thought or event. And then it'll dry out your throat. And it'll often cause you to have headaches. And it will often cause your bladder to run, and you have to run and go to the bathroom. Sometimes it'll cause you phlebitis and things. It'll cause you stomach pains. It'll cause your heart to pound faster. And these are all manifestations of the fear of failure. Sometimes I would use an example of this by saying, now, the biggest single fear in America, ahead of the fear of death, is the fear of public speaking. Standing up in front of an audience and speaking. And so in order to help you overcome that fear, now this is an exercise. Beep, this is just an exercise. Beep, this is just an exercise, all right? In order for you to overcome your fear, I'm going to pick one person from this audience, and I'm going to bring you up here to speak later on in the day. And I'm not going to tell you who it is, but you'll be invited up here to speak for 5 minutes later on in the day. So I just want you to think of, if it's you, what you will say in that 5 minutes. Now, how many people felt their solar plexus go just like that? Isn't that interesting? I told you, bleep, this is just an exercise. This is a drill. This is not true. But the very idea of being called up to speak spontaneously in front of a group causes your solar plexus to go. This is a manifestation of the fear of failure. Imagine what happens when you're given a business opportunity or an opportunity for a new job or a new promotion or even setting a new goal and committing yourself to embarking on a new course of action, to paying money to do something that you haven't done before, to learn a new subject. You would choke up all the way here. Pretty soon you can find yourself tossing and turning at night. What if I said, I'm going to call you up tomorrow? You don't know who it is, but I'm going to be one of you, and I look at you like this, and I give you a big smile, so you think, oh my God, he's looking right at me. It's going to be me. Do you know what would happen? You'd be tossing and turning all night, thinking, oh my God, what if it's me? What if it's me? Well, you see how irrational it is? I've told you I've told you this is an exercise. It's only a drill, but even the thought of it would cause you probably to be awake at night. So this is where you experience the fear of failure. I just write FOF. I used to write follow up and close when I would say, now the third part of selling is follow up and close. I write FU and close, and I realized it didn't look too good on paper. Anyway, so we say the next habit pattern is the compulsive negative habit pattern. This pattern develops when children receive conditional love. Let us even say when children are the victims of conditional love. This is love that is not given unconditionally. It's given, taken away, given, taken away, given, taken away. Children respond with, I have to please other people. And so instead of saying, I don't have to, I can do anything I want, is children start saying, I have to. If I don't do this, children's parents say, if you don't, you're going to get it. You better do this or else. If you don't do that, you're in big trouble. And so children who are traumatized about losing the love and security of their parents start thinking, I have to do what mommy and daddy want. I have to do what they want, or they'll get mad at me, they won't love me, I won't be safe, I'll be in great danger. And so what they do is they start saying, I have to do what mommy says, I have to go now, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to. Children who have been the victims of conditional love grow up with what is called hypersensitivity. And as adults, they are hypersensitive to the opinions of other people. They can't do anything without getting the approval of others. They've got to ask other people. What if somebody disapproves? What if they don't like me? What if they're mad at me? And so they are actually like a deer caught in the headlights. When it comes to anything new or different, they're paralyzed. In selling, for example, the most important quality in selling or in entrepreneurial business is the quality of boldness. It is the quality of actually getting out there, Brett, you know what I'm talking about, and doing it, right? Instead of talking about it and planning for it. And the fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, the fear that other people may disapprove is so traumatizing that it causes people to paralyze and not try anything new or different. So the compulsive negative habit pattern creates the fear of rejection and also the fear of criticism. This fear of rejection is experienced by adults as type A behavior. Now, there are many people here who have what is characterized as type A behavior. I'll talk about this in greater length tomorrow. But type A behavior is an obsessive desire to earn the approval of the boss. We can never earn enough approval from the boss. I've had people working for me who could have the best year in history, be #1 in the history of the company, and on January 1st, they feel that they're starting all over again. They feel that they have no success, no approval, and they're always scrambling. And what happens with type A behavior is you are trying to perform to what is called an undetermined high standard. In other words, you never know. You can never get there. You can never reach the point where you can relax because you never did get the unconditional love that you needed, and you can never get it from your boss. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So we say that if you repeat over and over again, I like myself, your self-esteem increases and your fears will diminish. Now this is one of the great breakthrough thoughts. If you can imagine that everybody has high levels of fears as a result of childhood experiences, and your mind can only hold one thought at a time, imagine your emotions like a teeter-totter is as your self-esteem goes up, your fears go down. And the more you like yourself, the less you fear failure. The more you like yourself, the less you fear rejection. The more you like yourself, the more you realize that if you do fail, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you tried something that didn't work out. One of the things we say is, remember, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And obstacles come not to obstruct, but to instruct. Obstacles come not to obstruct, but to instruct. That's the attitude of the self-actualizing person. And in another attitude of self-actualizing persons is that they are concerned with the thoughts and feelings of others, but not overly concerned, as they please at least themselves in all things. In other words, they say, you disapprove of me, or you reject me or criticize me when I call on you. Well, you have a nice day, because it doesn't bother me at all. And they just go on because they know that being rejected is not personal. When people are not supportive of you, it's not personal, it's their problem, it's not your problem. Laura Huxley wrote many years ago a book, and you don't need to read the book, you just need to have the title, and the title was, You Are Not the Target. And what it basically says is you're not the target. If people are hostile towards you, or aggressive, or unsupportive, or negative in business for any reason, it's not personal, it's their problem, it's not your problem. So what you do is you say, well, you have a nice day. And you just let it roll off your back. And the more you say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. I encourage people when they get up in the morning to say, I like myself, I love my work. I like myself, I love my work, I like myself, I love my work. You can't say it 3 to 5 times without starting to smile. You can't even listen to me say it without smiling inside. It just makes you happy. And of course you teach your kids to say, I like myself, I like myself. And you get them to look in the mirror and say, I like myself. And you tell your kids what wonderful people they are, and they just walk away feeling that the most important people in their life think that they are wonderful people, and they develop positive levels of self-esteem, positive self-image, positive self-concept. They see themselves, and they set really high standards for themselves in terms of realizing their ideal. So it's really important. So the more you say, I like myself, the less you fear. And if you say it over and over again, eventually you drive it down into your subconscious mind until it becomes locked in and permanent. Eventually, you reach the point where you become absolutely fearless. You become absolutely unstoppable. And you do it by pushing down this message, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I love myself, I love myself. And we'll talk more about this later. Now, come to lesson number 4. All right? Before I do that, why don't we just do this one exercise? What one action are you going to take immediately as a result of what you've just learned in this session? Please write down your answer to that question on page 22. What one action are you going to take? Or what one thing are you going to do differently? And you can just write, I'm going to say I like myself 100 times a day. Now, if you're going to say I like myself, I do not suggest that you do it in public washrooms or in crowded elevators. But prior to every sales call, say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Prior to every phone call, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And your confidence goes up and your fears drop. And remember, self-esteem is the foundation of self-confidence, and self-confidence is the critical determinant of success in public life. Interesting study recently, self-confidence is also the foundation of sex appeal. Did you know that? A person with high levels of self-confidence is considered to be sexy by members of the opposite sex. For some reason, they're attracted to it for whatever it happens to be. Let me give you an example. We were at the Grammy Awards a couple of months ago in Los Angeles. Incredible experience. And Mick Jagger was singing. Mick Jagger is one of the ugliest people that you can imagine. He looks like he's been beat with an ugly stick, without stopping. And yet he has so much self-confidence that literally women crawl over broken glass and line up around the block to service him. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing. Yeah. No, it's an unbelievable thing because he's got so much self-confidence. It connects with some animal part of our nature. And the higher your level of self-esteem is, the more attractive you are, not only to members of the opposite sex, but the more attractive you are to other people. The President of the United States, Mr. Obama, is called No Drama Obama because he seems to be so confident and completely in charge and in control of himself all the time. And people run to the voting booths and vote for him because he seems to be so confident. Why? And so we're not even going to talk about politics, but the person who has the greatest level of confidence exudes that confidence, and it affects everybody around them. Everybody wants to be working with and for and around people who have self-confidence, and the more you like yourself, the higher is your self-confidence. So let's go on to lesson 4, your subconscious powerhouse. The conscious mind has 3 specific features. And if you take your conscious mind, we say, first of all, it is objective. In other words, it's objective, it's skeptical, it's unemotional, it is rational, it counts facts and figures, and it is discriminating. it chooses between what is better, what is worse, what is higher, what is lower, what is prettier, what is not as pretty. Now, the second one, I want you to change your word. In your workbook, it says, does it say the conscious or the subconscious? It says, does it say the subconscious? Please cancel out the sub. This is a misprint. When I saw this, I had a heart attack. This is the conscious mind. The conscious mind has 4 functions. The first function is to identify incoming data. Let's say, for example, you're walking across the street and you hear the roar of an engine. And you immediately identify that it's a truck and it's driving down the street toward you. The second thing you do, you say, okay, roar of engine is moving truck. Is you compare it with previous experiences. You look at it and you say, how fast is it going? Well, it's driving 30 miles an hour and it's a block away, it's not a problem. If it's driving 60 miles an hour and it's 60 feet away, knowing how fast the truck will cross that, then it's a problem. You compare it with your other experiences with moving vehicles. Third thing you do is you analyze the current situation. Here you are in the street. Should you jump forward or jump back? And then number 4 is you decide what action to take. If the action is jump back, then you'll find that you'll do it instantaneously. So you've all had that experience where you have a situation and you immediately analyze, compare, you identify, compare, analyze, and decide, boom, and take action immediately. You have this all the time. You have it with ordering coffee and so on.